We are 2 days away from the fight night between Steve Garcia and David Onama. Name value is not really there on this card, but there's still a few sneaky fights that could be very good. But overall, the card is just probably one of the worst of the year. Between this one and the one coming up, the final one of the year is also pretty bad. Between Gabriel Bonfim and I forget who else is fighting him. But with that being said, we're going to go through this entire Garcia and Onama fight night card, and we're going to be giving you my predictions. Starting off the card with Talita Alencar going up against Ariane Carnelosi. I'm going to go with Ariane Carnelosi here. The main reason I'm going to go with Carnelosi here is because, yes, Alencar has a very big BJJ grappling background. Not really showing off her skill. She was kind of 50-50 in her career, so it's not like she's this insane BJJ grappler, but she was in it for a while. I think she had over 20 matches, so she does have a BJJ background, but the issue I have with her is she has not shown that whatsoever since she came to the UFC. She actually has no finishing ability ever since she came over. She has not finished a single person, whereas Ariane Carnelosi, she's a very strong striker. If you look at her picture, you probably can't see it in the predictions post. But if you go to her photo on Tapology, for example, she is absolutely jacked, and I think she's gonna be able to stop any takedowns that Alencar tries to go for. And I think on the feet, she's gonna have a big advantage as well, because Alencar has shown that she's not very dangerous on the feet whatsoever. But Carnelosi has shown she has that knockout power. She's shown it repeatedly. She also shown some submissions on the ground as well. But I'm going to trust Carnelosi to be able to stop the takedowns of Alencar, and I think she'll be able to piece up Alencar on the feet. So give me a 29-28 Carnelosi decision. I think maybe Alencar gets takedowns in like the third round and maybe makes it close, but I'm going to go with Ariane Carnelosi here very easily. Moving up, we have Phil Rowe going up against Seok Young Ko. This is an interesting one. Not only because I said I would stop picking Asian fighters, but the funny thing is, this dude is called the Korean Tyson, and we called the other Asian fighter that we picked on the previous card, we called him the Asian Mike Tyson, and then he ended up getting finished very quickly because he was showboating. I already forget his name. But yeah, Seok Ko, he is a former Sambo champion. He was very successful in Sambo. I think he was the first ever Korean Sambo champion. So he has a very good grappling background as well as finishing ability. He's not called the Korean Tyson for nothing. He's shown finishing ability. He has not shown it so far in the UFC, but he is coming off a win to Oban Elliott, which it's kind of going back and forth on whether that's a good win or not. Personally, as of right now, I'd say it's an okay win. I wouldn't really say it's all that well, but he did beat a few decent fighters, but we don't really know where Oban's going to go from here after losing his first, after getting his first loss to Seok Ko. Phil Rowe, on the other hand, Phil Rowe is just a very powerful striker. We've seen him get cracked a few times. We've also seen him get pieced up pretty badly to these people that keep the range, and Seok Ko likes keeping the range. He's a powerful striker, but doesn't really rush in all that well, or all that much, as well as mixing in the wrestling. Philbro in his most recent losses was Jake Matthews and Neil Magny, both who are very good at stand-up and very good on the ground, which is exactly like Kyo. So I'm going to go with Seok Ko here. I just think he's the better grappler, and I think he's going to be avoiding the powerful shots that Phil Rowe tries to throw. And I think that he'll be able to piece up Phil Rowe pretty badly on the feet as well. So give me Seok Ko to win by submission in the second round. I think Seok Ko is going to be able to get the finish pretty early on in the second round. I don't really value Phil Rowe at all. Even though he does have power in the hands, I think Seok Ko is just way too better technically in this fight. And way better well-rounded. So give me Seok Ko second round submission. Moving up, we have Montserrat Ruiz going up against Alice Ardelin. I'm going to go with Alice Ardelin here. Kind of like the fight I talked about, the first fight we talked about. It's a size matchup that just makes this a very easy pick. Montserrat Ruiz is 5 feet tall, and she's on a 3-fight losing skid. Now, give her credit, though. She lost to Amanda Lemos, she lost to Jacqueline Amorim, and she lost to Edouard Mora. All three which have shown that they've proven that they are very good in the UFC. Um, but all of them have kind of shown that they can literally just flip this girl over if she tries shooting a takedown. She's known for her wrestling, but she's not going to be able to do it all that well with this size difference. Um, Elise Ardeline, on the other hand, I don't know. She's, she's definitely got the advantage striking. Her grappling's okay. But I'm gonna go with Ardeline just because it's another big size disadvantage for Ruiz, and I just can't pick her to win this when she has shown that she can get manhandled by these other women. And Ardeline has better striking to Ruiz, where I think she can win just because of her striking alone. Personally, I don't think either of these women should be in the UFC. This is probably the worst matchup on the entire card just because of how awful these fighters are. They kind of just chucked Ardeline into the UFC for no reason. Um, she was 9-5 going into the UFC, so I don't know what the hell they were doing. Um, Whereas Ruiz had a better case, she was 10-1, but the size disadvantage is finally starting to, make a difference with these other women. So give me Alice Ardeline. She's a huge favorite. I don't think that should be the case though. She should probably be like a -200, not -400, but give me Alice Ardeline to win a 29-28 decision. Moving on, we have Caitlin Vieira going up against Norma Dumont. I can kind of see why this fight's on the prelims, even though it's between two high-ranked women's fighters. I'm gonna go Norma Dumont here. Caitlin Vieira, she's 3-2 in her last five, with her only losses coming to Kayla Harrison and Raquel Pennington. Whereas Dumont is 5-0, and she looked very good against Irene Aldana in her fight a year ago, who I'm very high on. Those of you that have been watching this channel for a while, you guys know that I'm very high on Aldana ever since her fight against Cara Rosa. But I think the big difference here is both of them are very similar fighters. Both of them are very well balanced. They both have pretty good striking, but they rely on their wrestling. I just think Dumont's a little bit more technical on the feet and a little bit better on the ground. So I'm going to go with Norma Dumont here to win a 29-28 decision. Um, Caitlin Vieira could surprise me here. Well, really wouldn't be a surprise because her only losses recently have been to the best, literally. Um, Whereas Dumont has yet to lose. I don't think, or no, she lost to her debut to Megan Anderson, and then she lost in the middle of her career to Macy Chasson. But since she fought Chasson, she's on that 5-fight winning streak, beating the likes of Cara Rosa and Irene Aldana. Both were in that war. So give me Norma Dumont just because she's a little bit better technically, and I think she's just better on the ground than Caitlin Vieira. But it's a close fight, I will say, but it will most likely be a boring fight, unfortunately. Moving on, we have Dante Johnson versus Cedricus Dumas. Now, obviously, you guys see that Dante Johnson is my lock of the week. This card was kind of hard to actually find a lock of the week. So, don't get me wrong, I'm still a little bit worried about this pick, but at the same time, I'm not. Dante Johnson has shown that he is an absolute killer on the feet. He has 6 fights, all ending in first round KO. This dude is an animal, and here's why. So he wanted to be in the UFC so badly that he went to Dana White and he said, I don't care what weight class it is, put me on a fight. They only had a heavyweight available. So Dante Johnson, who normally fights around middleweight to light heavyweight, he's like, screw it, I'll move up a weight class. He gained, he fights at 185, so he gained 20 pounds just to fight this random ass heavyweight on the Contender Series, and he knocked him out in the first round. Like, I just love this dude, and he hasn't even had to show his wrestling at all. He has a very impressive wrestling game as well that he has not had to show yet at all. And I think it's just going to be way too much for Cedricus Dumas. Cedricus Dumas obviously has a very big career, not in the UFC, but for felonies. This dude has been arrested over 5 times. I think it's been like 9. He's been arrested a lot, and he's broke, so maybe him being broke will help him fight better, but from what we saw against Zach Reese a month ago, where he got hit in the groin and was unable to continue, he looked very awful at the start of that fight. He was getting hit by a lot of shots from Zach Reese, and that is awful for him going up against Dante Johnson. Dante Johnson is going to rush in right away. That is the only thing I think that worries me. Dante Johnson just pours everything on in that first round. So if Dumas can survive that first round, maybe he can win this fight, but I think Johnson's gonna be able to clip his chin. Johnson has looked so freaking powerful so far, and if he throws Dumas to the ground, I think he'll land some nice ground and pound as well. Don't get me wrong, Dumas is a very decent kickboxer, and he has a nice advantage here. He has a 4-inch height advantage, and he also has a 5-inch reach advantage. So he has a nice size advantage, but I think Johnson's going to be able to avoid any danger Dumas tries to throw at him. So give me Dante Johnson for the lock of the week and to get the knockout in the first round. Very high on him, and I do think he will be a fun prospect. He just needs to, work on his, volume because sometimes it's a bad thing when you throw all your volume in at once. So I think he needs to slow it down every now and then. He needs to do it in separate exchanges. He needs to throw a 5-punch combination and then evade and then wait a little bit and then go in for it again. Kind of like how Tom Aspinall does it, but he doesn't do that. So he just needs to work on that if he wants to become a potential contender, honestly. Moving on, Timmy Kwamba going up against Chang Ho Lee. Chang Ho Lee is considered the Korean Khabib. And gosh, I know I said a few episodes a while back that I was done picking Asian fighters and that I had no hope in them, but I'm going to have to go with Chang Ho Lee here. Timmy Kwamba has just not looked good in the UFC at all. He lost to Bellagioki to split decision, which we don't really know how that's shaping out because Bellagioki just lost to Mason Jones very quickly. He also lost to Lucas Almeida, which Lucas Almeida is not a good loss to have on your resume at all. And then he knocked out Roberto Romero, which Roberto Romero, I think he might have been cut from the UFC or he deserves to be cut. If I'm pretty sure I think he got cut from the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he did or not, but he's lost 3 of his last 4, so he's probably on his way out regardless. But yeah, so his only win is to Roberto Romero, which was it was a good flying knee. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that Timmy Kwamba is really all that good, and he's shown that he cannot stop takedowns. Excuse me. In that Lucas Almeida fight, Almeida was able to take him down a few times, so I'm not gonna trust Kwamba to stop the takedowns of Chang Ho Lee. Lee just really spams takedowns, and what really is good with him is he just constantly goes for the takedowns nonstop, and his ground and pound is deadly. We've seen him land ground and pound multiple times. His most recent win 6 months ago was because of ground and pound, and he just freaking demolishes people on the ground with his strikes. So I think he's gonna be able to get down Kawamba, and I think he's gonna land that vicious ground and pound to get the finish. Give me Lee to get the finish in the second round due to ground and pound TKO. Hopefully, both of the Asians I picked on this card can win because if they go 0-2, I will actually not be picking another Asian fighter besides Tatsuro Taira. And I am dead serious if both of these guys lose. If we go 1-1, I might be able to live with it, but if they both lose, I don't know what to say anymore. Moving up, the final, the prelim main event. We got Kevin Christian going up against Billy Alicana. Those of you that are picking Kevin Christian because of his height and reach advantage, please go watch his Contender Series fight from a year ago, and then you'll be like, oh, wow, this dude's awful. Kevin Christian might have the worst striking in the entire UFC. I'm dead serious. He is so awful. His striking's awful. He landed a very lucky submission that kind of like fell into him. He got a triangle armbar where the dude kind of just fell into the triangle. It was so stupid and really annoying that he actually won that. But yeah, Kevin Christian does not deserve to be in the UFC. Billy Alicana, on the other hand, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC. He went 1-1. He showed good signs against Bogdan Guskov. He was able to take his back in the first round and, take him down. So he showed good signs against Guskov, who's a potential contender in the light heavyweight division. So that wasn't a bad loss. And then he beat Ibo Aslan, which Aslan was considered a very powerful striker, but they kind of just stood and, traded back and forth. But it was a very low volume fight. But that seemed to be very good for Alicana. So Alicana can win these low volume fights, which should be exactly this. I think Christian is more of a technical striker where he has no technical ability. Don't get me wrong, but I think in terms of he wants to pick his shots, they just end up not being the right shots to throw. So I think Alicana will win this slow paced fight, and I think Alicana will be able to take him down with ease. The only way I see Christian winning this fight Actually, no, I don't see Elikana falling into a submission. I literally think Christian only wins this fight if it's a robbery and Elikana somehow doesn't put him away. But I'm picking Billy Elikana to put him away by knockout in the first round. I think Kevin Christian is so awful, and I generally don't know why he's in the UFC. So give me Billy Elikana to win this fight. I was very close to picking him as a lock of the week, uh, but I just thought that Dante Johnson had way more value. So give me Billy Elikana to knock out Kevin Christian in the first round. The first fight on the main card, we have Alan Nascimento going up against Cody Durden. Now, it sucks, man, because I'm a huge Cody Durden fan. I was very high on him when he was on his 4-fight win streak after losing to Muhammad Mokaev. Uh, and two of those, his last two of that 4-fight win streak, he beat Charles Johnson and Jake Hadley. And I generally thought that, he was going to become this nice prospect. But then he lost to Tajir Alembekov, which, Tajir's turned out to be this very good grappler. Gets knocked out badly by Bruno Silva. And then you're like, all right, well, Bruno, he's a scrappy flyweight. Then he beats Matt Schnell, and you think he's come back. Then he lost to Joshua Van by decision, which was very bad. Van pieced him up very badly. And then he lost to Jose Ochoa to second round. So he's losing to these very good. If you're either a very good striker or you're a very good grappler, if you just have one skill that's very dominant, you can beat Cody Durden. And that's Alan Nascimento in this fight. Alan Nascimento is very good at BJJ. His submission game is lethal. He was able to beat Rafael Filo, which is considered one of the most dangerous BJJ guys, probably in the entire UFC, if I'm being honest. He submitted Carlos Hernandez as well. The only issue I have with Nascimento is he's been very inactive. He fought 4 months ago against Filo, which he won. Then he fought almost 3 years ago to Carlos Hernandez. Then it was 3.5 to Jake Hadley. So he's only had, in the past 4 years, he's only had 4 fights. So that's a little bit worrying. And he is getting a little bit older. But Cody Durden is the exact same age as him. I know that was an argument that Allen's been looking a little bit worse as he's getting older. But I think you can make that same case for Cody Durden. He also took this fight on very short notice. I think he took it a few days ago, so less than a week notice for Cody Durden. And Nascimento was already planning to go up against a grappler. Cody Durden is a grappler, but he doesn't really shoot takedowns right away. He likes keeping it standing at first, which I don't really know why he likes to strike first. He should just go for grappling right away. But in this fight, it's not going to help him at all whether he goes to that or not. Nascimento was training for Rafael Esteban, who just spams takedowns for 3 rounds and lays on you. So Nascimento will be ready for takedowns. I don't think Cody Durden's stand-up is dangerous to the point where Nascimento will get knocked out. And I think Nascimento will be able to find the finish. I think he'll be able to find a submission. I think Nascimento will be able to catch Durden at some point, and Durden will shoot a panic takedown, and I think that's when Nascimento will be able to lock in a submission. So give me Nascimento to land a second-round submission. I'll just go with the guillotine here. I think Nascimento will be able to lock in a guillotine second round. It's unfortunate. I was a huge fan of Cody Durden, but he's kind of fallen off now, winning 1 of his last 5. But he's fought a lot of good talent, so I can't really blame him. He's been fighting, the best of the best, and I think Jose Ochoa will be up there soon. But give me Alan Nascimento to get the second round submission. Moving on, we have Charles Radke going up against Daniel Frunza. Gonna go Charles Radke here. The main issue I have with Daniel Frunza is he got pieced up by my boy Reese McKee, and it was so bad. His face was beaten up so badly that they had to bring the doctor in to stop the fight, which was awful. I mean, to Frunza's credit, he did not want to stop the fight. He wanted to continue fighting, so it shows that he's got a little bit of dog in him. But Charles Radke, on the other hand, he's shown that he has very powerful hands. He can get hit a lot as well, but he's only getting knocked out to the best of the best. In his last 3 fights, he's gotten knocked out to Mike Malott and Carlos Prates, who are 2 of the hardest hitting fighters in this welterweight division. But on the other hand, he's knocking these other dudes out. He knocked out Gilbert Urbina, which was known as this, powerful striker as well. And then he knocked out Matthew Semmensberger. So, he's shown he has knockout power. And I'm going to trust his knockout power against Daniel Frunza. If Frunza can get pieced up by Reese McKee, he's going to get pieced up by Charles Radke. And Radke's only lost 2 of his last 3 because he fought 2 very big prospects. So give me Charles Radke to get the knockout. Um, Give me Charles Radke to get the knockout in the first round. I think it'll be a quick finish for Radke. He'll be able to get in there and out very quickly. And he's the minus 145 favorite, which, you know, I think it might be. I think it should be a little bit wider than that, if I'm being honest. I think the odds should be a little bit wider. Moving on, this fight is probably one of the hardest ones for me to pick. Isaac Dolgarian going up against Yadier Delval. I really want to switch my pick on this, man, because, Isaac Dolgarian's lost. I mean, to be fair, I did think he won the Christian Rodriguez fight, but if you're having a close fight with Christian Rodriguez, I mean, Rodriguez does beat all the prospects. I'm going to stick with Isaac Dolgarian. Dolgarian has very insane, dominant, strong style wrestling. Um, we've seen that multiple times throughout his career. I believe he's 7-1, and then he's going up against Yadier Delval, who's 9-0, which I think he has better striking than Dolgarian, but I think Delval also has very good wrestling, but I don't think it's on the level of Dolgarian. Some people are saying that Delval will be able to be more powerful than Dolgarian, but I don't think that's the case here. I think Dolgarian is way better technically on the ground. So even if Val does surprisingly have a strength advantage, I think Dolgarian has a better technique. And I think he'll be able to maneuver his way into the better positions. Delval does have the advantage on the feet, though, so I am worried about that. But Dolgarian is known for getting his takedowns before getting hit a lot. He doesn't really panic shoot at all. So I'm going to go with Isaac Dolgarian to win a 29-28 close decision. This is a very big test for him, even though Delval, he's only had one fight in the UFC and he put away Connor Matthews, which isn't really saying that much. At the same time, Dolgarian doesn't really have a big win either. So both of these guys are considered prospects right now, I'd say. Whoever wins this will be considered a prospect, actually. Dolgarian kind of lost his ever since he lost to Christian Rodriguez, and Yadier hasn't really beaten anyone. So whoever wins this will probably be considered a prospect in my eyes. But I'm going to go with Isaac Dolgarian. I think his wrestling is just better, and I don't think Del Val's striking is so insane to the point where he's going to be able to knock out Dolgarian. So give me Dolgarian to win a close decision. Moving up to the featured main card fight, we got Jeremiah Wells going up against Themba Gorimbo. Themba Gorimbo is known for getting a house from The Rock Johnson. The Rock loved Themba's story. He's from Zimbabwe, and The Rock just gave him the house because he was poor. So that was kind of crazy. And, Themba wasn't having the best career until he met The Rock, which was kind of funny. Then he went on a 4-fight win streak. The only good wins were the last 2. He beat Ramiz Brahimaj and Nico Price, which were pretty solid wins for an unranked fighter. Then he got his first big test when he got a top 15 matchup against Vicente Luque, where he got absolutely destroyed by a crazy counter hook, and then followed up by an anaconda choke submission by Luque to lock in the victory for him. So Garimbo's coming off of that unfortunate loss, but he is 4-1 in his last 5. Whereas Jeremiah Wells is 3-2 in his last 5, coming off of losses to a split decision from Max Griffin and a anaconda choke from Carlston Harris. I'm gonna go with Themba Gorimbo here. Jeremiah Wells does have very strong punching power, but he throws it very wildly. He's not accurate whatsoever, and he just kind of charges and chucks these crazy shots that don't really ever land. We've seen them land sometimes throughout the UFC, but most of the time they end up swinging and missing very badly. Whereas Gorimbo has shown that he's actually very good on the ground and he's a very good grappler. He's shown that he has some nice submissions as well. He had that crazy 32-second knockout over Pete Rodriguez, which was very unexpected, but he's known mainly for his grappling. I think his grappling will be able to dominate Jeremiah Wells and overwhelm him. The only way I see Wells winning this is with a lucky overhand, but I don't think he'll land it. And I think Garimbo will be able to find his find his grappling, and maybe even lock in the submission. I'm going to go 29-28 decision, though. Both these guys really haven't been finishing anyone. So I'm going to go Garimbo's wrestling to be the factor in this fight. Give me a 29-28 Garimbo decision, and he gets back in the win column. Moving up to the co-main, we have Waldo Cortez Acosta going up against Ante Delia. I went against Ante Delia in his debut to Marcin Tybura, and I thought he was for good reason, just because all these prospects coming from other promotions kept losing. But Tybura has shown that he does not have it anymore. He is on his way out of the rankings very soon. Whereas Walter Cortez Acosta just lost to Sergey Pavlovich. It was a very boring fight. They kind of just, stood at range and were landing these pity patty shots that weren't really doing damage to each other. So he's coming off of that loss. But he did beat Sergey Spavik in the fight before that. This one's so tough. Only because I know Acosta has semi good wrestling, but he doesn't really use it, which is my problem with him. D'Elia has shown that he's a very fast, powerful heavyweight, kind of like Tom Aspinall. I still think Aspinall's faster than him and quicker, and powerful, more powerful. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna go with Ante D'Elia here, mainly because he trains with Aspinall, so they have a very good mind in their corner, and their training camp is probably gonna be very well prepared for Cortez Acosta. I think D'Elia has the more powerful shots. I don't think Acosta really goes to his wrestling unless he gets hurt or he hits you. Um, Acosta's known for his counter shots, so I think D'Elia can damage him pretty badly before Acosta can actually land anything harmful to D'Elia. So I think D'Elia will wear him down with these fast barrage strikes where he just rushes in, throwing these crazy shots. I think that will damage Acosta, and it will force Acosta to, change his game plan up a bit, maybe try shooting takedowns that D'Elia will stop. But I think D'Elia will get this one done. He's looked better in his recent fights, and I think he'll be able to get the finish here, honestly. Give me Ante D'Elia to win this by a third round finish. Um, I think he'll damage Acosta badly in the second round. I think the first round will be pretty slow, kind of like the Pavlovich fight. And then I think the second round, I think that D'Elia will damage him pretty badly. And then the third round, I think Acosta will just be so done with this fight that D'Elia will be able to knock him out. So give me Ante D'Elia, but we should all be cheering for Waldo Cortez Acosta, because if D'Elia gets in a title opportunity and Tom Aspinall is still champion, Aspinall said he'd vacate, and we do not want that at all. So give me Ante D'Elia, but kind of hope Cortez Acosta wins the fight. And now the main event, we got Steve Garcia going up against David Onama. I'm a huge fan of David Onama. For those of you that don't know, David Onama was a fighter that really stood out to me when I came back and started watching UFC on the regular. Um, I didn't really start watching UFC every single week until 2023. Before that, I was kind of watching only the pay-per-views or fight cards that seemed like they were very entertaining. So really, the first fight I came back and watched, where I started watching it regularly, was it was the I don't remember who's the main event. It was Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria. I watched that fight night where Ilia Topuria dominated Josh Emmett, but I got to watch David Onama go against Gabriel Santos, and David Onama really stood out to me. His technical striking is so lethal, and he showed against Gabriel Santos. That is a very good win. Gabriel Santos lost a split decision to Leroy Murphy in his debut, and then he lost to Onama, but then now he's on a 2-fight win streak. Um, so Gabriel Santos has shown to be a very good quality win for Onama. Then Onama, beat Jonathan Pierce, which that's not a bad win at all. Then he goes the decision to Roberto Romero. And then that, you know, how do you not knock out Roberto Romero? That's kind of, playing in my mind a little bit. And then he beats Giga Chikadze, which shows to be a good win. So, it's kind of iffy on whether I wanted to pick him or not in this fight. But Steve Garcia is huge for this division. That's something that Onama's not very used to. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to go Steve Garcia in this fight. Onama is normally bigger than all the fighters he goes up against, but Steve Garcia actually has the advantage here, and he is on a finishing barrage. He has been finishing everybody. Obviously, he didn't finish Calvin Kattar, but he was the first one to drop Kattar in a very long time. But Steve Garcia also has some very quality wins as well. He knocked out Kyle Nelson in the first round, which is shown to be a pretty good win. He knocked out Mel Quizel Costa in the second round, which was another good win. He knocked out Chase Super in the first round back when he was down in bantamweight. Um, Another problem is though we've seen Garcia get chinned multiple times in his career though. Maheshite knocked him out in the first round back in 2022, and before that fight against Charlie Ontiveros knocked him down twice in that fight. Now, Garcia, excuse me, did still end up getting that win, but he got knocked down twice. So there is a little bit of chin issues I think I have with Steve Garcia. Am I about to switch my pick here? It's so hard. Do I trust? All right, let's really break down this main event here. All right, so Steve Garcia, has he been fighting fighters that are known for their power? Chase Hooper, not really known for striking. I don't even know who this guy is, if I'm being honest. Oh wait, hold up, I actually do know who this is. He's not really known for his power though. It's an Asian fighter. That's why I wasn't gonna try and say his name. Malquizal Costa, he's actually that's a very solid win though. I do like that win a lot, but he's more balanced. I think Malquizal Costa is more balanced, if anything. He's mainly known for his ground game, I'd say, rather than his striking. So, Garcia didn't have to worry about the stand up at all. Su Wong Choi, Su Wong Choi's lost to like everyone, so I'm not gonna pick. He's lost one in his last five, so that's not really anything big. And Garcia fought him when he was 1-3 in his last four, so that's not a good look for him either. Kyle Nelson's really not that dangerous on the feet. The only reason he just beat Matt Favola was because Favola just threw everything in the first round, and then he just got picked apart because Favola just stopped throwing in the second and third rounds. I might actually switch my pick. I was gonna go with Garcia, which sucks because I picked Garcia is a former Performance of the Night winner. So it sucks I might not go with. Oh wow, wow, he did beat Cheap Mariscal in a different promotion. That's actually a huge win. He did lose to Ricky Tercios though, which is back in Bellator, but that was ages ago. But beating Cheap Mariscal over an LFA is not a, that's a pretty good win. All right. And then he beat Calvin Cater, but Calvin Cater, he's on his way out. He's lost his last five. He's 1-6 in his last seven. So he's on his way out as well. To be fair, he lost to everyone that's been very good though. Let's look at David Onama though now. This is a hard one to pick. I was going back and forth on this one, but I didn't realize that this one was gonna be this close. Wow. Really, only 7% of people are actually picking David Onama to win. That's kind of crazy to me. There's no way that's accurate. I don't think that's what that number means. Okay, 19%. Wow, I still thought that'd be a little bit closer. I get it though. Steve Garcia has knocked out a lot of people recently, but I don't think the people he's knocking out are that good. Whereas we look at, David Onama, lost his debut to Mason Jones, but Mason Jones, he's kind of shown that he's a sneaky good fighter. Mason Jones lost his debut to Mike Davis, but that's a hard debut fight. He also lost to Ludovic Klein, but then now he's on a 6-fight win streak. So, you know, I'm not going to take anything away from Mason Jones. That's not a bad loss. He did lose to Nate Landwehr, but this was Nate Landwehr when Nate Landwehr was probably at his best. If we scroll down here, when Nate Landwehr beat him, he was coming off a win to Ludovic Klein, which Ludovic Klein has shown that he's about to get a ranked fighter soon. So that's not, at the time, it wasn't really a bad loss, and they barely lost. It was a majority split decision. Then he knocks out Gabriel Santos, which was a big prospect at the time. Beats Jonathan Pierce, which, Jonathan Pierce, it's not shaping out to be that, you know, he's been in the UFC for a while, but he's starting to lose some fights now. So, going to decision with him might not be the best. Roberto Romero, that's the one that might make me stay with Steve Garcia, man. That's just a rough, rough freaking look. Like how do you go to decision? I'm gonna look up the stats for that fight, and if David Onama dominated it, then I think I'm gonna go with Onama. But if he didn't dominate that fight, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go with him. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's freaking rough. because I just don't know how you go to decision with him. All right. Um, all right, let's scroll down here. Okay, what? No, not Garcia. It was his second and most recent fight. All right. Sorry, it's taking me a while to look this up. Okay, there we go. All right, we pulled up his name finally. All right, David Onama versus Roberto Romero. Now he did dominate that fight. Oh wow, he somehow got knocked down by Roberto Romero though. He outstruck him by significant strikes, 121 to 74. He landed a takedown, tried a submission, also landed a knockdown, but Romero somehow clipped him. But that is also the only time that Onama's been knocked down. Um, that's a little bit concerning though. But Steve Garcia has shown that he has a pretty weak chin as well, though. Steve Garcia has been knocked down. Let's see, three, five. He's been knocked down 5 times in his UFC career. Now, to be fair, the last time he's been knocked down was back in 2023, which was 4 fights ago. Um, but it was to another guy that's not the best really. He got knocked down to a guy that was 3-3, and an Asian fighter that came over from the Asian scene. So I'm gonna go with Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia has better momentum going in this fight. Onama hasn't really been showing that finishing ability in a while. I think Garcia is gonna, mess with him just because Onama is used to fighting smaller guys. Um, well, actually, oh geez, we might not get done with this episode, guys. I'm sorry. How tall is Giga Chikadze? Because I feel like Giga seems like a tall dude. Giga's 6 feet, so Giga is taller than Onama. And Onama also has a very good corner. He's from Glory MMA and Fitness, which is a pretty good camp. But so Steve Garcia is also from a very good camp. He's from Jackson Wink MMA. Oh my gosh, I don't know who to freaking go with. I might not be able to pick this. I don't have a lot of underdogs. Do I just go with freaking David Onama because he's the underdog and I like him more? I'm gonna go with Garcia. Final pick. And another thing I just thought about, Onama does this thing where he will throw great volume for about 3 minutes, and then for the last 2 minutes of the round, he will not throw anything. Garcia has amazing volume. He's shown that throughout that Cater fight, which happened 3 months ago. He showed amazing volume throughout that entire fight, and he was able to almost knock out Cater in the third round. Don't get me wrong, Onama is a very good technical striker, and he looks for the accurate shots, but Garcia, I think, has the stronger power. He's going to come forward more. He's going to be bigger than Onama. I think Onama could potentially take this to the ground, which would play in his favor a lot. Um, but I don't know. Steve Garcia has been very hard to pick against recently. So I'm going to go Steve Garcia here. Very hard pick for me to make. Wouldn't be surprised if David Onama wins. I'm going to be cheering for him in this fight. I think Onama's ranked 14th right now. But yeah, Steve Garcia is going to be the pick. Not that good of a card, but there is some sleeper fights that I think we could see. I think Garcia and Onama could potentially be a great fight. Um, I think Radke and Frunza could be a decent fight, as long as Frunza doesn't get put away quickly. I think that uh, I think Phil Rowe and Seok Young Ko could be a pretty good fight, and then potentially Dante Johnson and Shadrikus Dumas, depending on which fighter we see from Dumas. If Dumas does what he used to do, where he comes out aggressive in the first round, we could see a very entertaining first round, but then a finish in the second, because tends to slow down in the second round. But recently, he's just looked very slow altogether. But that being said, those are my predictions for UFC Garcia versus Onama. Sucks that this is such an awful card, but regardless, we're still going to be watching it. Hopefully, we see a ton of finishes and hopefully, we get good predictions. Our last 2 cards haven't been the best, but I think most people have been doing bad with the last 2 cards. I know the 2 cards ago, I know that was very awful. Well, I believe that was the fight night between, yes. RDR and Brandon Allen, everyone did bad on that card. So, I'm not too mad about my picks on that card. But UFC 321, that was on me. We already went through our review of that, but, you know, some picks that I probably should have, went with the more dangerous fighter. I kind of went with more well-rounded instead of the better finisher. But at the same time, I think Jose Delgado won his fight against Nathaniel Wood. We already talked about that in our review, though. And some fighters just didn't live up to the hype that we thought they were going to be. So hopefully we can bounce back with this card. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for listening to this card. I appreciate every single one of you. And we'll see you guys next time for the review.